The next item on our agenda is the annual affordable housing update. It's, again, this year will be presented in two parts. One by Catellus focusing on rental units, and also by Francie Ferguson representing the Mueller Foundation. And I will leave it up to y'all to decide which order you'd like to do your presentation.
We're going to do a little dance together.
Yes.
Thank you. Just to clarify, this is actually one presentation,
Okay.
but I'm going to do the first part, and we'll turn it over to Francie.
Okay.
We also have Jim Walker with us this evening, and I'll do introductions here as part of the process. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Brian Dolezal, Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Mueller Development, working with the City and Catellus Development. With me this evening is Francis Ferguson, who is the Executive Director of the Mueller Foundation, and Jim Walker, who is a staunch community leader, very involved in the Mueller Project from a very long time ago, and also serves as a board member for the Mueller Foundation. So in terms of our agenda this evening, some of this information, many of you as commissioners have seen some of this before, but we have some new commissioners, so it's always good to kind of remind people of some of the background and the history of the project. And then we've broken it up a little bit differently for you this evening. We'll focus on the rental product for affordable housing, and then we'll go to the ownership piece, talk a little bit more about Mueller Foundation, and then we'll end with talking about some of the transition items, which I know is something that's been important for this commission, as well as the city, as well as Catellus and the Property Owner Association and everyone involved in the project. And real quickly, before I turn it over to Francie, I just kind of want to remind everyone of the vision for the project. I'll just read this real quickly. Mueller will be an interactive, mixed-use, mixed-income community. There'll be a model for responsible urban development, offering a compact, pedestrian-oriented alternative to the land-consumptive and automobile-dependent development patterns that could influence the form and pattern growth within Austin. And the goal that's specifically related to affordable housing, redevelopment must offer a wide range of housing choices to create a new community of socially and economically diverse residents. And with that, I'm going to turn that over to Francie.
Thank you. You'll leave that right there.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. What do I do?
Yep, that's the one.
There's the one. So hello, good to see you all again. It's been a while, except not a while for everybody. Hi, Andrew. So I wanted to go back over some history. While we'll end up with transition, I want to take you back to the early 2000s, when all of this was beginning to be planned. Because some things that are now kind of taken for granted in Austin were not at all taken for granted in Austin, in the real estate community, nationally, anywhere. Thing one is this notion that you would have mixed income, all intermixed together, rental and for sale, and lots of different housing types at lots of different housing price points, all mixed up together. That was not the way it was done in the year 2000 in America. And it wasn't just because, it was built in. The financing systems, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, everything. You got financing based on having all your $150,000 homes, remember $150,000 homes? All your $150,000 homes here, and then you could do your $250,000 homes here, and then you can do your $350,000 homes here. You did not mix it up. So the plan called for it to be mixed up. So that was a stretch for everybody, for financiers, for how the builders were going to get their financing, all of it. In the plan, the MDA plan, the agreement was based on the smart housing policy at the time, which has been updated, but it was that affordable home ownership would be affordable for 1 year, and affordable rental would be available for 5 years. That's how it was written in the MDA. It got adjusted to ask us all to work together to make it better than that, longer than that, that things would last longer. But that's not what people expected at the beginning. The land trusts that are now beginning to crop up around Austin, that law did not exist at the state level. There was no real provision for a mechanism for long-term affordability. So we had to kind of make it up. Fortunately, the city was beginning to make it up. Habitat at that time, Habitat was maybe building 10 homes a year. So there was a little bit of this happening. Then we were going to come out with 100 homes in a year to get sold with. Just to remind yourself, a lot of you were here judging by the color of your hair and the color of my hair. You might remember that $165,000 homes were available across the street. They would be unrestricted. You could fix them up, and so these were going to be new affordable homes at $165,000. Stapleton, as referred to, it was happening. It had a 10% affordability. 10% was considered pretty ambitious, and we were at 25%. Fortunately, the vision was to have the city put the land into the deal, and that made all the difference, that the developer didn't have to buy the land. So the team worked with the city of Austin. We worked with People Trust, both groups, to kind of come up with the affordability concept, which was this shared appreciation mechanism. And then taking a lesson from Stapleton, the formation of the Mueller Foundation was designed to support all the public goals, but especially the affordable housing. So that was like a little bit of time travel, right? So this brings us a little more up to now. So first of all, we owe a debt of gratitude to Community Wheelhouse. Kelly Weiss was at the city and was one of the people designing this mechanism. She moved over to People Trust, where we began, and then ultimately with Community Wheelhouse continued to develop and foster the program across these years. This year, as part of continuing the sustainability of this program, Homebase, which has been at Habitat, has grown, and Habitat is now institutional icon around home ownership in Austin now. And so they're now taking over the home sales, and we began with resales in March, and then with new sales, income qualification, and rental in July. So that is sort of, that was then, this is now, and I want to introduce Robin LaFleur and Melissa, who are both with Homebase, and who handle, and Robin's team handles the work that I just outlined. Melissa specifically handles the new sales and the rental, and so thank you for being here this evening. And they'll be available if you all have questions around that. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Brian to talk about rental housing, and then I'll be back for homeownership.
Thanks, Ramsey. So each year we come back to you with another pretty picture of the apartments that we're building here. We're now at 12 apartment communities in Miller, which is really hard for me to believe. 9 of them are essentially complete at this point, although I think there's probably a little bit of final touches being done to Amley Branch Park. We have 2 more that are under construction. Rivette, which is now the name for the Ryan Company's project, and then Amley North Park, which is the project just at the catty corner of Branch Park, is under construction as well. And then we've announced more recently, Amley is building another community along Aldrich Street that'll start construction here relatively soon. But you see that we have a little bit of diversity amongst our apartment communities, and all of them have an affordable component to it, and we'll get to that momentarily. So again, just to remind you, the Master Development Agreement says that 25% of all of the homes, whether they're houses, condos, or apartments, need to be part of the Affordable Homes Program. On the rental requirement, 60% median family income, and as Francie mentioned, required for 5 years, but really make an effort, a good faith effort to extend, to go deeper than 60% MFI and to go longer than 5 years, and we have certainly accomplished that. So we are sitting at 25%. You'll see here momentarily just on the apartment side. We have market rate rental properties that have a minimum of 10% units, of their units that are affordable. That'd be our first 2 projects at Mosaic and Sync. But the majority of our market rate projects are at 15% of the units are affordable. And then of course we have 3 projects that are at least 85%, and in one case, one project that's 100% affordable. So we really kind of extended that the number of units into those communities a lot longer. And then in most of the agreements, those market rate apartments have those units available for 50 years. There's a couple of them. There's one, the Jordan actually, which is our 100% unit, affordable unit, actually has a 40-year commitment based on the tax credit deal that they made. But majority of them are 50 years, and then our 2 other predominantly affordable products are 99 years affordable. So again, extending it well beyond our 5 years. And then you see that we've gone beyond 60% or deeper than 60% with this chart below. About a third of the apartment units are actually at 50% or lower median family income, which we're very proud to have that information. And then this just kind of breaks out everything on a per apartment basis. You'll see that we've got the total number of market units, affordable units, the total number of units, what percentage of them are affordable. Again, Mosaic and Sync being at 10% is our early projects, and then going down to 15% for our other market rates. And then you can see the years that they are affordable. So again, 40 years for the Jordan, 50 years for a good majority of our communities, and then 99 for a couple of our projects as well. So when it all totals up, we're currently sitting at 25% exactly for the apartments. That does not account the home ownership, and Francie will talk about that next.
So I too get to show pretty pictures of the wide range of products that are in the Affordable Homeownership Program. But I think you know that. So this is, again, basically the numbers. We were required to be at 25%. And at this point, in addition to the 80% units, 80% MFI, are all of you anybody new here, like 80% MFI, are we okay with all that language? Okay. In addition, Catellus responded to the question of, gosh, the pricing was really pulling apart. Market rate was taking off. And so they also added a layer of what they called workforce, which was priced at 120% of median. And that's added about 45 additional homes at that pricing into the mix. And so it's taken us to a little over 25% of median, 25% of the units. So a big part of going beyond the requirements was going beyond 1 year of affordability. I think it's self-evident that if these homes were not in some way restricted, there would not be a single home out there past one owner, because the whole development took off. So by the time any one of those owners sold, the home would no longer be affordable. So the fact that Catellus was willing and to sort of stop in their tracks and really work on how to create a mechanism to retain affordability, which has evolved over time. It started as what we fondly call Group 1. It was a second lien. Now, remember, $165,000 homes were available across the street with no restrictions. The developers were not deeply subsidized to bring these homes to market. It was an inclusionary requirement. And so they were taking the risk. They were going to bring the homes to market. Those homes had to sell. If you go back to that era, there were people bringing homes at 80% of market and having trouble finding buyers. So we decided when we would start the program, just like any new product, and this was a new product, and it was coming in not 2 units or 10 units, but more like 100 units, that you might offer a different pricing than you do 4 years later once the product's proven. So the Group 1 received what I liked to call, like, my Uncle Bill helped me buy a home. He paid 30%, I paid 70%, and he said, when you sell, I'll take my 30% and you get your 70%. That's how Group 1 works. By the time 2013 came around, and remember there was a little crash in the middle of that, so the first sales were in 2008. By 2013, all the homes were being sold under what those of us in the field knew would be more sustainable, which is what we call Group 2, which is the 2% appreciation per year off of the affordable sales price. And this, by this point, I believe the Land Trust Bill had passed the state ledge, which meant there was some state law out there supporting a 2%. And the reason 2% was picked is that if you went back to those days, you look around the country, there was some appreciation-based models, but 2% basically kind of tracks the trend on what happens to median family income. So it was reasonable to expect, if you used 2%, that you could sell the home to another 80% income household 10 years later, or 7 years later, or 17 years later, or whatever. So with those agreements, and all of those agreements are captured, and then the most recent evolution was that we moved from a second lien with a deed of trust, I know I'm talking legal here, but over to a restrictive covenant with all the same rules and regulations and et cetera. So in every home, those agreements are signed and recorded with the county, just like your mortgage is recorded with the county. And there's also a purchase option with the right of first refusal for the Mueller Foundation, which is also recorded with the county. And then the foundation is there, which is named in all those documents, to be the steward of that affordability and to manage the resale, which is now managed in a partnership with Homebase, who handles the realty aspect of reselling to another affordable buyer. So that's a lot more than was up there, but that's how we now have succeeded in having 164 homes resold to other affordable buyers. There have been 629 homes built and sold under this program. I got to get to the next slide. This is all the different types of homes. You can get to this slide. It says that we have 25%. But this is sort of where we are now as of June 1 of this year. There were 629 new homes. Of those 629, 164 have been resold. A few of them have been resold more than once. That does include the 45 workforce homes at 120% of median that I mentioned. Only 38 have been released to market. And in the early years, there were some releases because it was 2009 and nothing was selling and we couldn't sell them. Over time, there were some resold because we needed to get one of the products not so heavily affordable. And so we released some of those. We've talked about that in other meetings. And then sometimes we have to resell because at this point, in order to buy back an affordable Group 1, it costs us about $250,000. And we don't have $250,000 coming in, you know. So sometimes we have to sell a less desirable floor plan out of a Group 2, and that yields some cash, and then we can buy back when a Group 1 resells. So I think that's a terrific track record, instead of losing every home we bought after a year or 2 or 5. Oh, sorry, it went.
Go back one more thing,
Yeah. So, so in the recent years, we have shifted our marketing some, and we now have a very deliberate marketing process with a prospective buyer pool. We've enacted a few fair housing preferences for folks who have children and for folks with physical disabilities. So we have regular Zoom calls with outreach, and people come into the Zooms, probably 50 to 60 people, and then they apply to get into the prospective buyer pool. And we've increased our information that's available on the Mueller website, lots and lots of outreach, and it's very much helped the diversity of the home buying groups. So I've been very excited about that over the last few years. So I'm about to turn it over to Jim, who's on our board, who was here at the beginning of the Mueller planning, and the board and I have been working for the last 2.5 years, and they long before that, on thinking through how we transition to a life without Catellus, and we've been making some great progress on that. So first of all, we've kind of beefed up our own internal team, and then secondly, we've got very solid operating partners. I can go through, and we're increasing. We've obviously added home base. We're increasing our relationship to the Property Owners Association at Mueller, because of course they're going to be there for the long term and we're going to be there for the long term. And then we have a bunch of other wonderful partners who help us out at various times. And so here, I guess I just kind of like to go through again what the foundation does. Can you hear me? Oh, I got to speak into the mic.
Yeah, for the recording.
So all the home sales and equity stewardship, all the income certification, this is an ongoing practice of the foundation in partnership with Catellus and with Homebase to make sure that homeowners understand what they're buying, and that we have a full accessibility to the affordable homes by the people who need it most. Home resales are being handled really well. We're able to work with that same prospective buyer pool. Homebase is able to get immediately connected to buyers as they're ready to resell, walk them through the process. And then the whole process of stewardship, part of that is stewarding the owners themselves. They call with questions about insurance. They call with questions about how to work with the POA. They call with questions about reselling, about refinancing, about how to handle wills and turn over their home to, be sure their intentions are clear. But then they also call with questions about the physical plant and how are they going to deal with various physical plant issues. And we're also thinking about what is our role with those physical plant issues, because these homes you know, they're going to be there for hopefully 100 years, and the residents themselves will not. So all of that is the work of the foundation, and it's a real honor to be involved with it and a pleasure to work with the residents and the community on it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim, our board member, about all the kind of overarching work on the transition.
Thank you, Francie. Thank you, Brian. So timeline, and I understand you guys have seen this before, but I want to make a couple of things about this. I wasn't necessarily involved at the beginning. The beginning was in the 80s with the CARE plan, and that was a community-driven thing. Rick was there, and affordability and accessibility was a concept introduced then, right? So in the 90s, when the Mueller Neighborhood Coalition came along, and a lot of the people here were involved in that, affordability was a leading value set for whatever was going to happen here. And then as the RFP process happened, that the earliest iterations of the commission shepherded affordability was a big conversation there. So it predates this. There are some huge milestones here that I won't go back over, that the community came back together. All these housing summits were when the community came back and said, hey, the great idea, the best idea we had a few years ago isn't quite panning out the way we thought it would. We need to refresh the idea. And to bring in subject matter experts, those are important milestones. The TCAD, I love that you wrote TCAD solutions. It felt like a painful inquisition at the time, but that really solidified a lot of the model, right? And it hardened up the model. And one of the other things it deepened was a sense among the board members that we're not going anywhere. And so just to reiterate something Francie said, and I know transition is a big thing, Mueller Foundation's not going anywhere. We're sticking, Catellus will be gone, Foundation will still be here. And so then new hiring more staff, coaxing Francie out of retirement to be ED of the foundation and bring her decades of housing expertise to this is a huge part of being able to head confidently into the transition. And then it really is hard to read from this angle.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. The partnership with Home Base now, and again, a thank you to Community Wheelhouse for a lot of years there, but I'm really excited to have Home Base now on board as a partner, and Habitat, and the maintenance and the stewardship, and then down here, some of the policies. We're doing that with these Zoom meetings with the affordable home owners. One of the biggest tricks of this is the balance of how do you support the people, the families who are in each one of these homes in this moment, and whatever their issues are, 15-year-old house, capital replacements, there's other kinds of costs they have, the TCAD stuff, with the other mission, which is to preserve the stock, preserve the units, so that we can resell them to another family and hold on to them. And so that balance is tricky. So this timeline will keep going. Our main revenue sources are, we get a 1/4 point off of each sale, which includes the big commercial sales, like whenever, I think the Home Depot has sold, that whole thing is sold a couple times, so there's a slug that comes in from that to the foundation. So it's not just residential, but it's also the commercial buildings. Stewardship fee is a newer fee that we've put on to try to help keep up with upkeeping these homes as we go through them. And then the resales, Francie just talked about, we try, when I'm going to talk, next slide, we're going to talk about this, but we try to retain as much as we can, but we're trying to lean into the homes that are more built for families, that have floor plans that are good for families. So we do not let go of a home to market lightly, ever. But when we do, it's a very strategic letting go, because we're going to reinvest that. It's a revenue source when we let one go, but it's not one we're jumping at. Our expenses, as Francie mentioned, is to buy homes back and then to have high-level staff be running the foundation. And we do have an audit there. There's a link, which isn't too hard to find. We haven't been as visible, I think, as anybody would like over the years. We're aware of that. But we do operate like a nonprofit. We'll talk about that here in a second. So it's not like we're trying to hide, but information is out there to find. So doing the transition and going forward, retention, the legal documents are pretty solid. If you're an affordable home owner, you know that the Mueller Foundation is in that transaction, right? There's not really any way to not know that or not be aware of that. We have a very strong position on every home. The relationship with TCAD is good right now. We recognize that TCAD leadership changes every now and then, so that takes relationship management, but we're focused on that. We know that's there. In 30 years, the time frame of a typical mortgage, it's going to be very interesting to think that some of the Group 1 owners, the 89 that are left, and some of the Group 2s may actually last out. I mean, how cool would that be, right? If the Miller as a community, as a big experiment is that successful that people are going to stay for 30 years in a market rate home or an affordable home. So I'm excited about that actually happening. And then these other bullets are some of the requirements of being an affordable homeowner. You don't have as much freedom in an affordable home as you do in a market rate home. And that's part of that balance of the unit and helping the families that are in there. So the foundation has been very diligently, thoughtfully, intentionally getting more involved in making sure that the homeowners in the affordable homes are upholding their part of that relationship in that transaction. The risk to resale, like when we get into one, what's the condition of the property? Some homes are rode pretty hard, right? So it costs a lot to retain them and get them to another family. The funding for the Group 1s, because of the shared equity model that Francie described, it can be a pretty big chunk of funding to get those homes back into the program. The income and appreciation match is another part of that calculation at the end. And then we're as much subject to interest rates in the market as anybody else every time a home comes up. But the goal is for the foundation to stick around. The goal is to retain as many as possible going forward. Accountability, look at that, you just heard that. Some of the Group 1s may be too expensive for us to retain. That's when we let them go. The layouts, again, we're trying to go towards families. We are a 501c3, so our 990's out there, our other stuff is out there. And then we want to be more visible to the community, so we are working on a report that we want to make more kind of, again, in the spirit of the transition, to be more front and center with that. And I will stop there, and I'm assuming we're open to questions.
Yes, before we start with the questions, just to make it easier for the presenters, why don't we start with the questions about the affordable home program first, and then we'll switch over, because I'm sure we're going to have also questions about the rental units. So, commissioners, questions. Kathy?
Thank you all, as always, for all of this information. I just wanted to clarify, the stewardship fee, is that like a $25 a month fee that is
Yes.
are all owners paying
It's
that?
in the restrictive covenant. It is not on the second liens. So it's sort of rolling in as homes are sold. When someone sells now, if the new buyer comes in under the restrictive covenant. So over time, it will build up. The notion was that over the next few years, a lot of new sales will stop, right? It'll be built out. So the CA fees will decrease. And so we wanted to have a little additional fee when we did some cash forecasting, and the covenant allowed us to do that. So in direct answer to your question, while it may be adjusted over time, the current fee is $300, which is $25 a month, and if someone pays it all at once, it's $250.
Thank you. I have one more question. There was, under the work, it was slide 16, under work with the POA, on the ongoing stewardship, it said check for property sales to confirm funding source. I just was wondering what that meant.
So it's not actually to confirm funding source. It's that the POA, so first of all, I'm super excited about the relationship with the POA. The POA also has a transition committee, and they all began talking about how they're concerned about the affordability. And I was like, that's really great, because we can't do it alone. We're part of this community. So we're discussing kind of how, like a little MOU between what's the POA responsible for and what's the foundation responsible for, and how. So one thing that happens is the POA, one of the things that happens with POAs is they get something called a resale certificate. The resale certificate notifies us so that we can make sure that we received the CA fee. So it's that kind of administrative stuff that while it's all been happening while Catellus is there, we want to make sure that, it's kind of like, let's look at each other. You're the POA. When Catellus goes, that stuff still has to happen. And so we're working to get real specific about how we actually do collaborate so that it doesn't like go, oh, well, I thought that was just because Catellus was around. Like, no, that really has to continue.
What was your question was about?
Yeah, I just didn't understand what that line meant.
Yeah, that's what it was referring. I mean, that's one of the ways we.
Yeah,
but,
it's always in the resale certificate.
Right.
Because I think it's in the deeds, but it's through the POA.
Right.
So, yeah. But it's through Associa, not necessarily the POA.
But whoever the POA is, if they're managing, if they don't use Associa, they'll use somebody else, and they'll
Yeah.
have to do that.
Right.
And that's a thing that we really need to collaborate on.
Correct. Thank you.
Yes, Andrew.
I just had a question, curious about the 100% MFI workforce housing that was over and above the requirements. Is
Yeah.
that interspersed everywhere, or is that
It's-
localized?
No, it's sort of interspersed around, and it's come in different products, a few at a time. It's not a lot of them, right? It's
Yeah.
45. But there are some in the row homes, and there's, I think, some of the Mueller homes.
Condos.
In the condos, yeah.
Okay.
And so basically, they were priced a little higher. One of the things that I'm real excited that the foundation board approved a couple years ago was that we kind of went back to something we used to do, which is we can price homes at 80% of median on resale, or 100% of median on resale, or 120%. And the thing that's really exciting about that is we have a lot of people on the waiting list who are at 83% of median, 85% of median. Well, if you can only sell at 80%, it's like, I'm sorry, you can't buy an affordable home. But there's nothing else that people at that income level can buy in Austin. So the fact that we can resell at 80 and 100 and 120 is really great in terms of being able to serve people who need affordable homes, but who all the conventional programs are limited to sell at 80%. So I think that's very cool in terms of income diversity at Miller.
Yes, Corky.
Thank you for all this. It was very helpful. I want to talk about home base a bit. I'm very happy that we have formalized a relationship with Habitat again. That's very confidence building. I understood what their job is. Just talk a little bit about how was a home base organized specifically for us?
Why don't we have Robin come up
let's have a
and...
little bit more on home base. Thank you.
Sure.
No, home base already existed
Okay.
as a corporate entity, and a strategic plan was done a few years ago to really expand their role.
So Home Base is a support one organization of Austin Habitat for Humanity, and we decided to partner with the Mueller Foundation and with Catellus to serve as the program administrator for the entire Mueller community. We've been around since about 2011. And we're essentially the consulting arm and real estate brokerage firm for Austin Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions that might be directed towards me?
Not yet, but we'll let you know.
Okay, I'm here.
Ken?
First of all, thank you very much. Jim, maybe you could answer this or someone.
If I don't have an answer, I'll have an opinion.
That's why I asked you. In the presentation, there were references a couple of times about the 89 Group 1 homes. And there was a comment made in there about that it may be outside of the range. Is this the strategy on how you're going to manage those 89 homes over the next couple, as they either move in or out of the program? Are you looking at, is the strategy selling most of those, or is it a mixed strategy use?
Well, there's no more coming in, right? We're not doing the shared equity model anymore. Haven't been for a long time, but I'll let Francie talk about that.
So what we determined by looking at it is that many times the Group 1 homes are bigger floor plans. Not every time, but many times we're going to want to keep a Group 1 home. So currently, you either lose it or you lose a Group 2 home. So some of the Group 2 homes, by allowing one of the Group 2 homes to go to market, that accomplishes a couple things. One is it probably yields enough cash to buy a Group 1 home back. So it's kind of a one-for-one trade, right? You didn't have to lose a whole bunch of homes. We'd actually have to sell 2 Group 1s to buy a Group 1 because the resident takes most of the equity. If you're not a math person, this might get but you only have to sell 1 Group 2 to buy a Group 1, generally speaking. Not always. So in addition, some of the Group 2s have, and I think Kathy as a realtor will agree, some pretty weird floor plans. So frankly, it works to sort of say, you know what, we'll sell that one. And sometimes they're really tiny. And so we actually had one that we didn't get any offers on recently, and it's going on. And then the other thing is that there's a lot of the row homes, a lot of the affordable homes for very sensible reasons are in the row homes and the Mueller House condos. And so if we sell off one of those, it makes those business models a little easier. So basically, that's our strategy for now, unless somebody wants to write us a big check. If anybody's got a big check, we'll take a big check to preserve homes without having to sell homes. But absent that, that's our strategy. And I think it's a pretty good strategy in terms of portfolio management.
So I'll do another spin on that. So the best idea in 2006, 7, 8 was a shared equity thing, right? How do we kind of really push the benefit, the equity benefit to the home buyer, and hope they'll be there for a while to build that up. What we did not anticipate as the community coalition was how successful Miller was going to be and the Austin market was going to be. So the gap between that $165,000 home across the street and our 80% cap, and then what the lowest market rate thing was, there's just this gap just started growing. And so you saw the Group 2 kind of, so it became really impossible to retain any of them. So that's when the housing summit, second housing summit happened. We started doing zero lot line stuff. We amended the PUD to try to get more affordability physically. We went to the 2% model, the Group 2 model. So now, as Francie mentioned, there's Group 1s in that 89 that are yard homes and garden homes that have nice, more bedrooms. So those are the ones we're strategically trying to come back, right? But in pulling into the Group 2. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much.
Commissioners, other questions? Yes, Rick. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's bigger.
A couple of questions. One, and this is sort of a perennial question for me, on the Mueller houses, have we gotten to a point now where we've sold off all the ones? I know there was an agreement with the board to sell off some of the affordables because of the financing of the condos. Is the Mueller House ones, is that stabilized at this point, or we still have more to
We'd
sell
agreed
off?
to sell off 13, and we have sold off 13. We are also exploring with the Mueller House condos, are there any other ways that can help with being a 50-50 affordable product? I think Mueller actually has a lot of lessons to offer the city as they are thinking about doing a high percentage of affordability in a condo regime in other locations. So, yeah, but we have sold them. Now, as I was just explaining though, it might well be that we will sell some more because it benefits the condos in terms of their business model and at the same time allows us to buy back Group 1 homes. But your first question, yes, we've done the 50-50.
Got it, okay. The second thing I was gonna, this is just a comment, and I may be completely wrong about this, but I believe on the slide, you guys showed every property sale that happens, there's a transaction, and there's money that's right back into the foundation. I think it was listed as 0.25%, but I think the slide actually has a couple extra zeros, so I might just double check that, just to make sure the percent
Okay,
numbers.
you're right, it's 0.25%. So 0.0025, yeah.
Yeah, 0.25%, is that correct?
0.25%, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, there's some extra zeros there. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Rick?
I just wanted to thank you all for doing this too. This is probably the best, now that I've understood the affordable program in all of my time serving on this commission. So I do appreciate that. And one of the things that was Mueller was a big experiment, and so we were, what can we do here? Has any of this been replicated? I know you just mentioned that the city's looking at it in condominium regimes, trying to replicate that. Is it being replicated anywhere else in Austin, or any other places that you know of?
Well, I know that part of why Homebase has a whole business model is that the city has been doing inclusionary density bonuses. And developers are not in the business of managing resales. So Homebase, I believe, has been is not just under contract with us, but is under contract with other developers. So to that extent, this inclusionary model, which nobody thought would ever work back in 2004, has now been proven up, and so developers are now doing it as part of vertical mixed use and some of the other density bonus programs. So secondly, I know that just from conversations with TCAD that head appraiser Krieger has told us that she gets called from other counties around Texas, and she just turns over our documents to them. The city's doing more of this. Homebase obviously does, Habitat does a lot of it now. There's the land trust, the Guadalupe Land Trust, which has been, doing this. So yes, I guess is the answer.
Thank you.
Commissioners, other questions? Josh?
If I can just potentially answer Rick's question a little bit. Colony Park is probably the closest thing to it.
Okay.
It's got a 20% affordability on it, but it's also city-owned land, so probably the closest thing to the Mueller. And then it was a large tract that the city could have inclusionary zoning on it, because otherwise inclusionary zoning is prohibited by Texas state law.
Thank you for that. I kind of figured that was the case.
Commissioners, other questions regarding the
Got
mill?
one more bite.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Martin.
Thank you. Thank you all for giving us this great report. Really appreciate the information. Like Rick, I'm finally understanding it. The one thing that I have wondered about over this time of affordable housing is the reality that a lot of it is not really large enough for what we would call family housing. I would say that that'd be a 3-bedroom type of opportunity for people. Anything smaller than that really doesn't fit most families, and I was hoping that in the future that would be more of a focus for y'all. I remember you did say that you were trying to really have family size be the thing you're working on, and I just wanted to reiterate that I think that's the better goal here, is to have those larger three-bedroom places available in this program.
One of the things we're working on, it's not an easy puzzle to solve, is how to allow people to add bedrooms. We have a number of residents who would like to, and ultimately, we have run this by the city, and but we also have to have agreement with TCAD, and so we're trying to get that figured out. Yeah.
And as you were noticing, the yard, some of the group ones in the yard home and garden home are those bigger floor plans, and so we do look for those as they come up and try to pull those back. And I just want to, the balance between who's living in one of these at a particular moment and the stock, adding a room may make it harder for us to retain that house once that family moves on. So the complexity of it, I think, is layered. But I think we all agree, more citywide, more family size housing.
And I'm hopeful that in the future, y'all can really lead the city by example here in maybe consulting with them more about how to do this. We had a Windsor Park Neighborhood Association meeting a couple of months ago where our District 4 rep was in attendance, and he didn't really understand how to make this work, and I just used this example right here of, hey, you want to have affordable housing, first of all, you got to own the land so that you can control the value of the land, which was the number one thing that made this work. And he looked at me like I just said, there's cheese on the moon. And so it occurred to me at that point, wow, these guys don't even know this. And so it would be nice for y'all reach out maybe and say, by the way, here's how we do it, just so in all these new programs, because at that moment, it was Cheeto Vela. He said to his staff, we need to find out how many properties the city owns. And I recommended also you find out how many the county owns as well, because those are the only places we're going to be able to build things in the future that are affordable.
I didn't bring my soapbox today on the community participation about what's replicable about the Mueller experiment and which are the anomalous, unique things that are going to be hard, but there are a lot of replicable things. So I agree with a lot of that. But you also are posted to end at 7:30. So unless there's...
We can actually go till 8 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
Thought you'd be glad. We got the room till then. Commissioners, other questions related to affordable? Yes, Andrew.
Sorry, this should have been the follow-up to what I asked. The 120% MFI is considered affordable.
Yes.
Under people.
I mean, in the MDA, the word affordable is in ownership is defined at 80%. Right. So that's why we used the word workforce, because it wouldn't fit under the MDA. But, but out there in the world, if you contact HUD, 120% and below is kind of the purview of the world of affordability and homeownership.
And correct me if I, so median family income is set at a federal level, and it lags. And it lags high growth places like Austin. So I think that gap, filling that gap up to 120 was something that we felt was needed.
Commissioners, other questions? All right, I've just got a couple of little follow-up. One, because it changes every year, what is the median family income for Austin this year? Yes, Josh?
Yeah, who's got the
numbers?
Would you repeat that, everybody?
$122,000 a year for a family of four is the last year's median family income. So you basically take 80% off that, and it's a chart, so it's different if you're a,
Yeah, 122,300.
Yeah, 122. So it's different if that's a 1-bedroom to an 8-bedroom, but it's also, if it's a 1 person, it's going to be different. But it's that base number family of 4. That's 100%. So it's gone up a lot, and part of that is actually, it's on the whole MSA, so it isn't just Austin's, it's actually the whole MSA area, and a lot of that is a lot of high-income earners coming in and raising that, because it's median and not average, so you think oftentimes, oh, you have a billionaire living here, but it's median, and it's the high-income earners moving in that have, or growing in that has really brought that number up.
And just to add a little twist to that, because of that, I love that you knew that, this year, HUD set the 80% of MFI numbers at a number lower than the math of 80% times 100%. Because if you actually did the distribution curve, it's not a bell curve. And since more people are lower, they captured that by setting the 80% limits at somewhat lower than just the math of 80% times 100%. So I think that was a kind of an affirmative kind of pricing thing. I think it benefits people.
Commissioners, other questions on the affordable home program? I did have just one other follow-up, and this is an issue that it came up a couple of years ago, and I think you'd addressed it then, and I just thought this would be a good opportunity to follow up. Can you tell me what steps the foundation takes to make sure that homeowners aren't, to use this term, gaming the system, that they're actually living in the home, that they're not living somewhere else and leasing it out?
Sure. And it's not perfect, but we send out a letter every year and ask people to return it. The vast majority do, but some don't. If people don't return it for a couple years, we contact them. People in the community sometimes let us know that someone's short-term renting or have moved, and then we contact them with an email and a phone call and find out. They always have a right to cure, because and so sometimes, like during the pandemic, people were like, well, right after the pandemic, right, we kind of weren't, people were doing all kinds of things during the pandemic. They lost jobs, they had to go live with family. I mean, there was a lot going on, but what we find is that lots of times people have an explanation. We've established a couple of policies that reflect life so that someone can go, well, you know what? We need to go out of town to take this master's degree program or this whatever. And so then they can lease at an affordable rent for that year and then come back in. And so we've tried to create some things that sort of match what you can do with your home. We also created a short-term rental policy that allows some short-term rental, but we restricted full house rental to 45 days. So as we find folks, we follow up with them. That's not to say we find everybody, and we don't go door to door knocking. So, but when we get letters back that we had forwarding addresses and stuff, then we contact them.
Mike, I have a question, one question.
Yes, Corky.
I'm remembering long conversations about the foundation way back at the beginning. And wonder, what other activities or programs does the foundation support besides the affordability program here? I remember at one point, and this is a long time ago, probably right at the inception, or not long after Christmas was built, the finances, the money in the community was pretty stable and going up. It must have been 2008 or so. There was some talk about funding educational programs in the neighborhood schools. Jim, you probably remember that. Are you still doing activities like that, or have those kinds of other programs in the Mueller program in your strategic plan or your long-term vision?
So in the past, when we first started, we had kind of multi-layered mission statements. So we did do funding to elementary schools and middle schools around Miller, where Miller kids were going. And so there was a nexus. We did grants, campfire. We got very involved in the East Link Trail. formation and the establishment of that, that's now essentially completed and handed over. So the current focus is, so we don't do any kind of small, regular giving out. We don't have a solicitation program. It's really settling the affordability program for the transition, right? And kind of knowing what we're going for, this next big chapter of Mueller, really solidifying that. I can't speak on behalf of the full board about whether or not we'll start doing that kind of thing again in the future. That would be a full board kind of discussion. Yeah, okay. Got anything?
Commissioners, other questions? Okay. Commissioners, what about questions regarding the rental units? Brian? Anybody? Well, I've got one. You showed us the list of the complexes and their percentage of affordable units. Who determines that the owners of those properties actually have those units available, and are they verified on a yearly basis, and who does that?
That's actually one of the things that Catellus has hired Homebase to help us with. So before Community Wheelhouse did that, and now Homebase will be doing that. And then where they report to in the future, that's something that we're talking to the city about right now. I don't have any more information today, but between now and when the MDA concludes, we'll have that wrapped up as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you could let us, as decisions are made or discussions are made on that topic, I think that's probably one of those that goes on our list of transition issues that I think we'll be very interested in. Any other questions for Brian on the rental units? Yes, Rick.
Yeah, can I follow up a little bit on that? So, who has been dealing with that issue at the city, and it's changing because of departmental changes, or what's going on?
I'm not sure exactly. I do know that on a twice a year we give a report to the city, and these numbers that are in this PowerPoint presentation reflect those numbers. So we provide key statistics about the affordable rental as well as ownership to the city on a report. That report goes to a variety of folks, everyone from folks in economic development to the housing department to the city manager's office, et cetera. Community Wheelhouse and now Homebase is reporting to Catellus. Catellus then shares that information with the city. When we're gone, we're trying to figure out, does Homebase just direct that directly to the city? Is it through the Mueller Foundation? Is it through some other entity? And we're just working with the city to figure out which department, which individuals that would go through. So it's just kind of the dealing with the admin piece of it.
And have there been any problems with compliance at this time that this has been going on?
I believe there may have been one or two instances where there may have been an apartment complex that instead of having, I don't know what the numbers is, instead of 15% affordable, maybe they were at 14 for a given time. And as soon as we learn about it, remind them. And there also may have been instances where the unit needed repairs. Or some other activity, and that's why it hadn't been done. So I think that's generally what has happened. It's been one or twosies here and there, but for the most part, the apartment communities managers are very good at holding on to the affordable apartments.
That's really good to hear, and thank you. That's sort of like normal stuff that's going to happen. So, but yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Josh.
I had a quick question. There was a building on there that you said it was on Aldrich that was coming that looked bigger than other buildings. I was just curious on kind of unit count on that and any of the information, kind of where it is in Aldrich, because there's really only 2 last spots available.
Yeah, there's a block, and I don't know, is it possible for you to pull up the illustrative? If not, I can point in just a second. But there's a block that's between Teachers Retirement System and Austin Energy, this building, and so this block right here. It'll be the entire block that they'll take over. It's 645 units. It'll be our largest community, apartment community.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. With 15% affordable.
700 in Windsor Park.
Commissioners, other questions on the rental unit? Yes, Corky.
No, I'm in the map.
Oh, okay. Oh, the map is, okay.
This block here.
Do you know the acreage? Okay.
Commissioners, other questions for Brian? Dave, any questions?
No, I think I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions regarding this aspect of the Affordable Home Program? All right. Kate, is anyone signed up to provide public testimony on this topic? Well, I want to thank all of you for your presentation, and for the newer commissioners. Some of you may not know that Jim Walker, in addition to his current activities, was also is and continues to be a longtime community leader, but was also a longtime member of this commissioner and longtime chair. And so it is always good to see you in whatever capacity you're and whoever you're representing. Good to see you. All righty.